sometimes having fun with scales, you got to practice them anyway. Try to make it more fun. So I do a lot of that. Like I'll take usually my favorite scales. Like I'm not really good with F sharp and some of the weirder ones, C sharp. Those are tougher for me, but I really like to play the scale and then just kind of dance all around that. And what I found, and this is probably quite obvious to everyone, what I found is that when you get that familiar with a scale, and this is true, like I said, I play guitar and bass guitar. When you get really comfortable with where the notes are, I think this is a universal statement, it's a lot easier to improvise, because the real key to improvising it kind of is, your skill, but it isn't, in the sense that it's more about your ability to not have to think about the technique that you're using, and it just happens. Then you can actually focus, or in a way, unfocus on focusing, so that you can just let whatever comes out. But the only way to really achieve that, what appears to be complete random improvisation, is that you have to have such muscle memory of all these different patterns and techniques that they just come out and they just make sense. Because, if you try to thinking about improvising, that doesn't really, that kind of makes it stagnant in a way, right? It's supposed to be this passionate kind of, just thing that happens all on its own. But again, you can't ask someone to, let's say, sprint if they can't really walk so well, right? When they go to try to sprint, they're going to fall. It's going to be a big old mess because they don't have that muscle memory yet. So I think in that regard, it's important to play even the most basic things like major scales just constantly. In every time you pick up your horn, run through all the major scales, all the minor scales. I think there's more value in that part of it than what seems, at least on the guitar side. They're very focused on all the different modes, right? And look, all that stuff's really important, especially if you're going to play jazz. You just have to know that stuff in order to play that. But not everybody plays that kind of jazz or that kind of music, right? But it's really important to remember that knowing your scales and being able to just, key of G, and just understand what that means in terms of, I don't even care if you really know the note names, right? I'm saying the fingering positions, which, it kind of goes hand in hand, but it doesn't have to be so deep into theory. It just has to, G, and I play these notes, and you understand that. I think we get so bogged down, or at least I do as a comeback player, in trying to figure out the theory. And theory is wonderful, but man, it's a serious commitment. If you want to get to that level of playing and understanding of music, you have to spend a lot of time. Most normal people would have to spend a considerable amount of time focused on learning all of that, right? And that's hard, and to some degree it can be boring and unrewarding, and maybe you don't make it to the end. Hello, But what I found is that you're led there anyway, whether you want to or not, because as your playing stagnates, you start to add different things. But the only way you can make your playing stagnate is if you get really good at what you're playing. Then it becomes too easy. You're like, okay, well, what you're actually doing is improving your skill. So as an example, if the only thing you can play really, really well is an E flat major, in E flat major, like that's my favorite key. So many of the songs that I've put out and written to are in that key. Specifically, like I've written the song in E flat major on purpose, because when I want to solo or come up with trumpet parts, I don't have to think about what I'm doing in E flat major, because I just know all those notes. They just, come off my fingers really, really easily, just effortlessly. So I don't have to think about it, is the point. And I can just listen to the music and find these places to put cool things that technically I don't have the skill to do in other keys, but I do in E flat major. So I play a ton of songs in E flat major. So I'm kind of illustrating my point overly here, but I'm saying that, that's my favorite scale. And I do so many cool things in E flat major because I can play it without having to think about it. Hope that helped.